everyone. Today we are talking about how to compare decimals and percents. So both decimals and percents are considered to be rational numbers. Rational numbers can be written as integers, mixed numbers, fractions, decimals, and percents, but like I said, today we're focusing just on those decimals and percents. So starting off with decimals, decimals are probably the easiest form to compare in order, and that is because all you have to do is line up the decimal and then just go from left to right. So if you look at this first example, 0.123 and 0.125, I've got those decimals lined up. Before the decimal, I've got 0, which is the same, so we're going to go left to right after. 1 is the same, 2 is the same. Now I finally get to my 3 and 5. So 3 is smaller than 5, so I know that that 0.123 is less than our 0.125. And that is what makes comparing decimals probably the easiest part we can do. All right. Today we're going to really look at converting between decimals and percent. So I always tell my students to remember this DIP. So D stands for decimal, P stands for percents, and then that I can be into. So if you have a decimal but you want it to be a percent, right, we're going to take that decimal place and move it 2 times to the right. So something like 0.25 is going to turn into 25%. Now going the opposite way, if I have a percent that I want to be a decimal, I'm going to take that and move the decimal 2 times to the left. So 75% going 2 times to the left gives us that 0.75. Now here are just some tips and tricks that kind of relate our decimals and our fractions and percents all together. So another way we can think about decimals is when we read them kind of the fancy way we like to say, right, using their place value, it actually turns them right into a fraction. So 0.1, the fancy way to say that is 1/10 because that 1 is in the tenths place. Similarly, if I look up here at that 0.123, my 3 is in the thousands place, so I would say this is 123 thousandths. So just reading them that fancy way, kind of you can compare between our decimals and our fractions. Percents are really easy to convert back and forth between fractions as well because the word percent literally means per 100. So per cent, like century, centimeter, centipede, right? Those are all 100. So we can always write our percent as a fraction per 100. So something like 25%, we would just write as 25 out of 100. So we're not going to use those quite like that today, but just some good things to be keeping in mind about your decimals, fractions, percents, and how they all relate. All right, let's get into some actual comparison of decimals and percents. So again, if I've got 2 decimals like number 1, I'm just going place value at a time. So before the decimal, we have 0. Next we have 0 and 0, and then we have 0 and 1. So that first number where you have a different or the first place value where you have a different number, that's going to be how you compare. So 0 is smaller, so 0.01 is less than our 0.01. Again, if we're going on to this, right, we got 0 before the decimal place is the same, and now we're going to look at that 5 and 4. So 4 is smaller, so 0.5 is greater. A lot of times people will look at a number like this and they go, oh, this one has more numbers, so it's bigger. But remember, we're just always going place value by place value, left to right every single time. Now, with number 3, we've got a 12 before the decimal place and a 3 before the decimal place. So that 12 is larger, which makes the number larger overall. Negative numbers, remember that your brain might have to think about this for just a second longer. So our -2 and our -8, right? -2 is larger than -8 because it's closer to 0 and farther right on the number line. Now, if we have 2 percents, right, we just compare them. So think about your phone battery, right? Is 25% battery or 82% battery bigger? And in this case, 82% is larger. All right, here's our first number where we have 2 different ones. So you can either take the percent, change it to a decimal, change it to a percent. Remember, you can think about that dip. So I'm going to take this decimal and change it to a percent. So remember, if it's decimal into percent, we are going 2 times to the right. So I'm going to take that decimal place 2 times to the right, fill in that 0, and add my percent. And I know that 1,020% is a lot bigger than 102%. So that is how we would compare those two. All right, and on to our last one, we are going to put decimals and percents in ascending and descending order. So remember that ascending sounds like up, right? So we are going up, least to greatest. There, clean that up a little bit. Okay, so if we want our smallest numbers first, right, our negative numbers are always going to be smaller than our positive. So that negative 1.7 is going to be first. Now we want to make sure that all of our numbers kind of look like each other or are the same form. So my other two numbers I've got are 2 decimals this time. So I'm going to take that percent and change it to a decimal. So again, going back to my handy dandy dip, we've got P back to decimal, right, is going to be going backwards twice. So if I move that decimal backwards twice, 45% becomes 0.45. And now I can just write them from least to greatest. So 45% would be next, then 0.53, then 1.83. All right, number 2, we are now going to put them in descending order. So remember, descending sounds like down. So instead of going up, least to greatest, now we are going down, greatest to least. So pause the video here and see if you can do number 2 on your own. All right, check it out and see how you did once I move my little face out of the way. All right, so our largest number this time is going to be that 0.45. If I take that 34% backwards twice, that gives me 0.34, which is next, 0.22, and our smallest number is going to be that negative 0.5. All right, so hopefully you learned some good tips and tricks about how to compare decimals and percents. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you next time. Bye.